The morning I got fired on Instagram Live, I'd already approved 6 vendor payments, flagged 2 anomalies in a wire transfer batch, and finished my second cup of burnt breakroom coffee by 9:17 a.m. Routine. Comforting, like muscle memory. I'd done this dance every weekday for the past 12 years, long enough to remember when our accounting system required triple-tab spreadsheets and a prayer to not crash. Long enough to know that if I didn't personally verify every payment over $50K, something always went sideways. I was the insurance policy no one wanted to admit they relied on. The last line of defense between their ambition and federal penalties. So when I heard the commotion in the hallway, clapping, forced laughter, that awful "what up, fam," energy echoing off glass walls, I barely looked up. Just muttered, "God help us," and initialed another approval cue. Then I saw him through the glass. Brady, the CEO's nephew, fresh from a 3-month marketing internship and armed with the kind of unearned confidence that only comes from getting a 6-figure title for surviving puberty in the right family. He was holding up his phone like it was a badge of honor, panning over staff with fake hype. "Let's go," he cheered. "Today's the start of a new era. Out with the old." Someone should have told me that the old was code for me. Real quick. Before the floor drops out, do me one favor. If you've ever watched one of these stories with coffee in hand, thinking no way this happened, hit that like button. And if you're the kind who listens in the car, at work, while pretending to answer emails, go ahead and subscribe. It keeps our little revenge therapy sessions alive. Trust me, this one's gonna stick with you. Now, back to the circus. Brady had taken over the corner suite last month. No experience. No clue. Just a ring light and a series of buzzwords he stitched together like a toddler with finger paint. He talked a lot about modernizing culture, removing friction, and streamlining legacy ops. That last one was his nickname for me, Legacy Ops. Like I was a fax machine in orthopedic shoes, but I didn't bite. I'd seen this type come and go. Flash, fire, fizzle, usually left behind a mess I ended up cleaning. That morning, already posted 2 videos, one hyping our new era of hustle with a drone shot of the building, and another featuring our HR director doing squats in the break room while holding a compliance is sexy sign. I wish I was joking. Still, I didn't expect my name to show up next. The clapping got louder, then softer, then weird, like people weren't sure if they were supposed to keep applauding. That's when Jessica from AR ran in, pale as drywall. "Sarah," she whispered, eyes darting between me and her phone screen. "You're on the live stream." He just fired you." I laughed. I swear to God, I actually laughed. One of those dry, cynical barks you let out when you think someone's playing a prank, but also you know no one in that office is smart enough to pull one off. She turned the phone toward me. And there I was, my name on the screen, my photo from LinkedIn, of course, and Brady's voice booming. She was part of the old guard. Stuck in the past? No offense, but the vibes gotta evolve. Out with the old. The comments were flying. "You savage face with tears of joy, bet she voted for fax machine's legacy ops down Elmau." I stood up. Slow, deliberate. Not because I was shaken yet, but because I was doing the math in my head. How many accounts still had my credentials? Had the daily authorization run cleared yet? Was the multi-tier vendor sequence I coded 2 years ago still active? No one said a word. Not the HR girl pretending to organize papers. Not the junior analyst who looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. And definitely not Brady, who was now flipping the camera around to film himself high-fiving someone with a man bun. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just packed my things, well, just my mug and a stress ball shaped like a dollar sign, and walked past them. Security didn't even stop me, too busy watching the live stream like it was a Netflix special. And here's the part Brady didn't stream, me walking out with one thing he never even thought to take. Control. You see, Brady thought power was about who had the camera, who had the followers. But in every company, there's one person who signs the wires, who holds the keys, who knows which clauses live and which contracts. And today, that person had just left the building, with all the locks still tied to her name. I don't remember walking into the lounge. I remember the feeling like my ears were underwater, like the air had a thickness to it, like something invisible had shifted and no one else had noticed yet. My heels echoed on the laminate floor with a kind of finality, like I was walking into a courtroom instead of the same open-space cafeteria where people usually stole my almond milk. And then I heard it. Out with the old. My name. Not my job title, not a euphemism. My name, like it was the punchline to a joke he'd been rehearsing all morning. There he was, standing in front of the neon wall sign that read "Grind Never Stops," grinning like a game show host on cocaine. He waved like he'd just cured polio. And the comments, Jesus, the comments, were still pouring in across the screen, hearts and fire emojis and WTKS. Like firing someone on live video was a TikTok dance challenge. No one stopped him, not HR, not the COO, not even Anna from legal, who looked like she was halfway through writing an email and forgot how to spell her own name. People just stared, because it was happening so fast, and because deep down they were all grateful it wasn't them. I watched the live stream on someone's phone. I watched my career, 12 years, 5,000 plus wire approvals, 3 CEOs, 2 full financial overhauls, get reduced to a soundbite. She's been great, but legacy systems, legacy mindset. We're pivoting to innovation, agility, he said. Time to bring in some fresh blood. Anyway, don't forget to like and follow. The second he said fresh blood, I looked at him like I was in a crime scene. You know that moment when someone walks through a door they'll never be able to close again. That was him, he just didn't know it yet. I turned away, walked back to my desk. My hands weren't shaking, that surprised me. I thought maybe I was in shock, but no, my hands were steady, calm, like they knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I opened my drawer, took out the zippered pouch with my personal stuff, gum, lip balm, my late husband's pocket Bible, and the branded thumb drive I used for off-site backups. I grabbed my water bottle, my mug, and that stupid framed photo of our team at last year's retreat, back when I still thought I was building something that mattered. Security arrived 5 minutes too late. I was already by the elevators. "Ma'am, we're going to need your badge," one of them said, a guy I'd known since he used to walk me to my car in snowstorms. Didn't meet my eye, didn't even look ashamed. Just held out his hand like I was a stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. I handed it over without a word. Brady strutted past on the phone, saying something about firing with flair and setting the tone. I wanted to laugh, I really did, but something darker bloomed instead. Not rage, not grief, clarity. You see, for all his influencer crap, Brady never once asked me what I actually did. He thought I moved money like a cashier, like the system ran itself and I was just the human stapler in the middle. He never looked at the vendor compliance logs. Never wondered why the bank never questioned our high-frequency transfers. Never read the contract addendum I signed back in 2018 after the audit overhaul. Never knew that authorized signatory wasn't just a box I ticked, it was a federally filed designation. A name, my name, and without that name none of the accounts worked. Not payroll, not vendor payments, not capital reserves, not even petty cash. But I didn't say a damn thing. Let them figure it out. Let them send 10,000 Slack messages and get zero answers. Let them call the bank and get a polite, robotic voice saying, "We're sorry, but that transfer cannot be completed. Please contact your account's authorized officer." Let them post memes about cutting the fat while every wire transfer fails silently in the background. Because if Brady thought firing me in front of 30,000 Instagram followers was the end of the story, he had no idea who he was dealing with. And the best part? The real chaos hadn't even started yet. The building smelled like citrus cleaner and blind confidence. I stood in front of the glass security gates one last time, watching the reflection of people pretending not to see me. Pretending they weren't relieved it was me, and not them being exiled. That's the thing about open concept offices, walls don't hide cowardice. My badge was already useless. They'd shut off my access remotely, except one little window they hadn't thought to close. My bank token still pulsed blue on the corner of my desk. That token wasn't just some plastic rectangle with a chip. It was the gatekeeper to every single financial artery this company had. So before I walked out, I sat back down. No words, no drama. Just opened my laptop, authenticated with the still active secure code, and ran one last report. The full export of the compliance chain. Every active contract, every authorized signer, every trigger flag in the AML framework, pulled the access log, stamped it, encrypted it, saved it to the thumb drive I'd had clipped to my car keys since 2017. I didn't look up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. Why should I? Let them piece it together like blindfolded interns chasing a piñata, except the piñata is filled with lawsuits and frozen funds. By the time I hit the parking lot, the sun was bouncing off my windshield like it was just another Tuesday. I got in, drove, didn't play music, didn't cry, just breathed. Funny thing happens when you spend your whole adult life being the person other people rely on, you stop expecting anyone to look out for you. But that day, something felt different. Not because I'd been humiliated, not because I lost my job. No, it was because they thought they could erase me in a live stream and still use the house I built like nothing changed. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd underestimated the systems I spent over a decade embedding into their foundations, systems that didn't run on vibes or bravery branding or whatever the hell Brady called it. They ran on process, on compliance, on my name. When I got home, I didn't call my sister, didn't text my ex, didn't update my LinkedIn to some pitiful exploring new opportunities status. I poured a glass of Pinot, opened my laptop, and sat at the kitchen table like it was just another late-night audit prep. Logged into the Sandbox server, when they didn't know I still had mirrored on my home machine. Not illegal, not sketchy. It was part of a disaster recovery protocol we'd written after a ransomware scare. I'd kept it clean, up to date, never once breached protocol. They didn't even know it existed because Brady had skipped the department overview to attend a CEO mindset seminar with green juice. There it was. The export I'd pulled, time-stamped, verified, untouched. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip, and let the silence stretch. Let's see how long they last without reading the fine print, I said out loud to no one. Because here's the thing. They hadn't just fired me without cause. They'd publicly terminated the only registered authorized signatory for every high-value account the company operated. They didn't revoke my signatory status. Didn't notify the bank. didn't process a formal amendment through legal, and even change the credentials on the two-factor vault I used to validate vendor accounts. No transfer of authority, no notarized revocation, no new designation filed, and without that, the system defaults to freeze, not because it's malicious, because it's secure. That's what I built. Not some spreadsheet life raft or password folder taped under a desk. A system that protected itself from incompetence. And now it was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protect itself from them. I didn't need to warn them, didn't need to make a scene. The bank would do it for me. All I had to do was pour another glass, keep watching, and wait for the little red lights to start blinking. And oh, they would blink. It started with a bounce. Just a quiet little transfer declined message on the account's payable dashboard, flagged in red with a cheerful tooltip that read, "Approval token not recognized. Please contact your system administrator." Only the system administrator was me. Linda from AP was the first to panic. I'd worked with her for 6 years, solid woman, 2 kids, Midwestern Catholic guilt in Excel form. She wasn't flashy, didn't gossip, just ran her department like a clock that never wanted to tick too loud. When her second wire attempt failed, she rebooted her session. When the third failed, she called IT. When the fourth failed and the vendor started threatening to pull services, she made the mistake of going to Brady. He was filming again, trying to shoot a day in the life of a visionary segment in the lobby with a tripod and a ring light. She interrupted him mid-take. He waved her off like she was a background extra on the set of his little influencer delusion. "Just send it manually," he said, adjusting his shirt collar. "Can't be that hard." Linda stood there for a beat too long. "There is no manual," she said, voice starting to crack. "Every transfer above $25K requires dual verification and an approval token tied to the registered signatory. That token was assigned to Sarah." Brady blinked. "Okay, so assign it to someone else." Linda looked like she aged 10 years in that hallway. "You can't just assign it. The designation has to be notarized, filed. We need to update the AML profile with the bank, and it takes days. We didn't even start the process. She was terminated yesterday." Brady laughed. "You're being dramatic." IT wasn't laughing. Neither was payroll, because while Linda was trying to send vendor payments, payroll was discovering that no one had gotten paid. The bi-weekly deposit that normally hit accounts by 9 a.m.? Nothing. Hundreds of bounce backs. The approval chain, the coded sequence that validated distribution, was blank, not broken, not faulty, empty. I imagine the panic crept in slowly. The sort of chaos that starts with 1 or 2 confused emails and then swells like a blocked artery. By noon, the Treasury team had pulled every manual, every contract. Someone finally unearthed the clause I'd written back in 2019, post-Sarbanes audit. All fund disbursement mechanisms shall be contingent on active, validated signatory protocol. In the event of termination, count freeze shall occur pending reinstatement or replacement validation. The clause didn't care about ego, didn't care about influencer hustle culture, didn't even care that Brady had fired me with a catchphrase. It only cared about signatures, validated ones, which meant the firm's operating account, the one that paid vendors, leases, bonuses, servers, everything, was now locked tighter than Brady's spray-tan jawline. And me. I was watching it all happen from my laptop, a live Slack feed flickering through a backdoor monitoring tool I'd quietly left running before my exit. Not maliciously, just one of those safety nets you build over time. For continuity, for disaster scenarios. And this was a disaster scenario. Vendor support tickets started rolling in. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Some flagged urgent, others with bolded threats. Final notice before litigation, breach of contract. Immediate response required. A global logistics firm halted shipments. A SAS provider cut access to our accounting software. One vendor, bless him, emailed Brady directly and said, "Until Sarah or another signatory is confirmed by the bank, you are in material breach. If you respond with another selfie video, we're filing suit." That one made me laugh so hard I had to put down my glass. The phone lines at HQ were flooded. A receptionist left her desk crying. Someone from legal tried to reset the token from the admin console, only to realize it had 3 layers of encryption tied to biometric data they no longer had access to. And Brady, he was still trying to film his next video. Something about navigating challenges with poise. Until finally someone told him the truth. "We can't pay anyone," they whispered. "The whole company is paralyzed." He paused, mid-script, a dumb ring light casting halos in his dilated pupils. That was the moment it hit him. Not the embarrassment, not the loss of control. The realization that this wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a stubborn employee refusing to adapt. This was the consequence of trying to run a Fortune 500 company like a lifestyle vlog. I leaned back, closed my laptop, and smiled, not cruelly, not with revenge, just with satisfaction. Because finally, they were learning what I'd always known. It's easy to mock the person who holds the keys until you find yourself locked out of your own damn house. The panic didn't start with screaming. It started with whispers, those clipped, frantic murmurs in hallway corners, the ones that smell like fear and cologne. Somewhere around 11:30 a.m., legal caught wind that AP hadn't processed a single wire. Treasury had gone silent. Payroll was flooding Slack with emojis that looked like someone trying to scream inside a locked coffin. That's when Diana, the general counsel, stepped out of her office. Now, Diana wasn't dumb. I'll give her that. She was sharp, calm under pressure, a creature of contracts and black pencil skirts. We'd worked together on a dozen audits, and while she never once invited me to lunch, she did know I was the only person in the building who could recite Clause 14.2 from memory and back it up with 3 case studies. She respected that, or at least feared it. She didn't even go to Brady first. She went straight to the compliance drive, pulled the framework file, scrolled through the archived signatory document, and then it happened. She stood there, staring at the screen, blinking, then leaned forward like getting closer to the monitor would change what she saw. Finally, she muttered, "Wait, who's our current authorized signatory?" Nobody answered, just the sound of air conditioning and someone coughing in another room. Diana said it again, louder. "Who is the active authorized signatory on file with the bank?" One of the junior counsels, Megan, poor thing, fresh out of law school, pulled up the onboarding doc I'd signed years ago, double-checked the filing timestamps, cross-referenced the name with the internal policy list, and then she whispered it. Sarah, it was Sarah, still is on paper, silence, like someone hit mute on the whole floor. I could picture it perfectly, the exact moment when the room collectively realized they'd fired the only person who could legally unlock the vault while live streaming it to an audience of gym bros and aspiring crypto influencers. Diana didn't scream. She just went pale, picked up her phone and barked, "Call the bank. Now, we need to initiate a signatory change request. Except, you see, it's not that simple. Banks, especially the ones handling multimillion-dollar corporate accounts, don't take kindly to panic. They don't respond to pleas, they respond to paperwork. Notarized, stamped, filed, verified. And they really don't like change requests that come in the same week as a social media termination stunt involving the words deadweight and legacy baggage." The bank's response was swift. Cold. "We require a notarized authorization document signed by the current signatory," they said. "In the event of employment termination, Protocol 17C requires formal transition paperwork and proof of reassignment filed within 48 hours. Megan read that out loud in the room like she was reading a death sentence. Brady finally looked up from his phone, where he'd been scrolling through comments under his firing video. His ego had been bruised by a guy named at Vendor Daddy 420 who'd commented, "This clown just tanked a business faster than Enron." "Elmau, what's the issue?" Brady asked, voice pinched. Diana turned to him, eyes sharp as razors. "You fired the only person who can move money. We did it publicly, and we didn't file a single transition form. But she's gone," he said, like that somehow changed legal standing. "She's not gone from the bank's perspective," Diana snapped. "You may have tossed her badge, but her name is still on every approval path we've got." Then the scrambling began. 3 lawyers trying to fast-track a new signatory, IT racing to pull together digital credentials, Brady asking if they could just use DocuSign. Diana's face told him he'd just lost the right to speak for the day. The courier service was called. The notary was called. Hell, even someone from HR started looking through old files for a copy of my passport just to fabricate something to submit. But it was too late. Because the system I built didn't just wait for new names, it required mine to unlock. And the moment they terminated me without process, they'd cut the wrong wire. They weren't dealing with a person anymore. They were dealing with a protocol. One that didn't give a damn about ego or Instagram lives. And me? I was at home, watching the chaos bloom like a slow-motion mushroom cloud. I refreshed the tracking dashboard I'd coded for continuity audits, the one that pinged alerts for system failures, approval gaps, payment stalls. Every box was red. Vendor queue, red. Payroll status, red. Legal compliance, red. The system wasn't crashing. It was defending itself. I sipped my wine, ate a cracker. Karma doesn't always come screaming through the front door. Sometimes it walks in wearing a badge that doesn't scan anymore, leaving behind a lock they can't pick. And the best part, they gave it to themselves. At exactly 1:08 p.m., the bank email hit every exec's inbox like a guillotine made of Times New Roman. Subject, urgent transaction, freeze, no emojis. No polite preamble. Just clinical doom in paragraph form. Per AML regulations, effective immediately, all transaction activity for account ID ## has been halted. Only the registered authorized signatory may approve transfers. As of 11:47 a.m., the individual listed as signatory, Sarah Whitaker, has been designated as terminated without succession protocol. No notarized reassignment has been filed. All funds are frozen pending compliance review. If someone had dropped a glass in the boardroom, it wouldn't have made a sound compared to the silence that followed that message. Linda from AP fainted, not metaphorically, actually. HR had to pull a chair over and fan her with a pizza menu. Payroll sat in their corner like someone had just read out a plague forecast. Treasury kept muttering no, 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 like they were trying to cast a spell. And Brady. Brady was in his office, still posting grind hard or die, trying quotes to his Instagram story over a filtered video of himself sipping matcha. The man had no clue. Because the thing about institutional panic is that it doesn't start with screaming. It starts with stillness, the kind that hits when everyone realizes they've stepped into a hole too deep to claw out of with buzzwords and hope. No salaries were processed. Escrows didn't clear. End-of-quarter investor distributions frozen. Invoices bounced like rubber checks at a flea market. One vendor even screenshotted the email from our billing system and posted it to LinkedIn with the caption, "When your client forgets to keep the lights on." Anyone hiring? By 1:22 p.m., 5 different vendors had locked our accounts. By 1:29 p.m., an investor pinged the founder directly. "Why am I hearing from a supplier instead of your team?" That's when someone was sent to interrupt Brady's little productivity vlog. He didn't take it well. "I'm in the middle of something," he snapped. "Yeah," the intern muttered, holding out a printout of the email. "So is the bank." He read it twice, then again slower. You could see the understanding crawl across his face like a bug he didn't want to touch. "I thought the signatory thing was like optional," he said. Diana nearly threw a stapler at him. "It's not a newsletter subscription. Brady, it's federal compliance. You can't just unplug someone like she's a fax machine and expect the entire financial structure to keep humming." He blinked. "But she's gone. We told everyone. And that's the problem," she snapped. "You told everyone before telling the bank. You made her exit public before filing the paperwork. The entire system recognizes her as active, and we don't have her replacement authenticated. Can't even begin to get one notarized until Monday. But it's Friday." "Yes," she said, "it is." Back at HQ, panic bloomed like rot behind drywall. Everyone was looking for someone to blame, but no one wanted to say the obvious out loud. You fired the only person who knew how this company actually worked. Up until this point, it was just chaos. Now, it was liability. The founder was still unreachable, playing his weekly golf game with a retired senator and 3 old money vampires who thought insider trading was just family tradition. His assistant tried calling twice. No answer. In the meantime, Slack melted. Investors were now in a frenzy. Legal was preparing damage control. Vendors were calling with phrases like breach of fiduciary obligation and formal notice pending legal action. And Brady did what any man-child with a corner office and zero survival instincts would do. He posted a video, set to soft piano music. Title: "Leadership Means Facing the Storm." "Hey fam," he said, clearly reading from a script someone printed 5 minutes earlier. "We've hit a bump in the road. Some old systems are causing friction as we modernize. But remember, pressure makes diamonds. We're working to resolve this and come back stronger." He smiled at the end. Like that would be enough. Like people weren't watching their salaries disappear, their contracts implode, their trust disintegrate like a wet napkin in a monsoon. And me? I sat on my couch watching the storm I didn't create but had every reason to expect, because I warned them. Not directly, no, I'm not that generous. But in every document I wrote, every protocol I put in place, every signature line that required 2-factor authentication and an audit trail, I told them what would happen. And now it was happening. Not because I wanted revenge, but because when you build a system that protects people from themselves, and then they rip out the bolts and fire the architect on camera, well, the system does exactly what it's supposed to do, it stops. And now, they were learning, publicly, brutally, that without the signature, the empire doesn't move, it freezes. The founder was on hole 11 when it finally hit him, not the ball. His short game had died a noble death years ago, but the consequences. The kind that don't get sliced into the rough, but dropped into your lap like a ticking briefcase. His phone vibrated once, twice, then just kept going. Voicemail after voicemail, messages from numbers too expensive to ignore. Lead investors, old money, regulatory liaisons. One from a guy whose name usually only appeared during fundraisers with champagne fountains and closed-door tax briefings. He put down his putter, checked the screen, saw the subject lines stacking like funeral notices. Account freeze, urgent vendor terminations, pending lawsuit filed, breach and non-payment, and the worst one. Was this some kind of joke? At first, he thought it had to be a mistake, or a prank, or maybe some exaggerated LinkedIn drama. It wasn't until he opened the group thread titled "Leadership Implosion Read Now" and saw the screen grab that it clicked. A paused video. Brady, standing in front of that stupid neon sign, smirking, captioned out with the old, a line that was now etched across the internet like a tombstone on fire. The founder didn't call Brady, he called Diana. And Diana didn't waste time softening the blow. Her voice was flat, brutal, precise. "A scalpel, not a bandage. You're hemorrhaging contracts," she said. "We are non-compliant across all high-volume financial accounts. Our AML designation is being reviewed." Sarah was and remains the only authorized signatory, and Brady fired her on Instagram. There was a long pause. He whispered, "He did what?" "He performed a public termination, recorded, edited, and posted for engagement of the only person who held the legal authority to move money inside this company." Another pause, then a sigh that sounded like it had been aging in his lungs for decades. "Call a meeting," he said. "Everyone, now," and the scramble began. Conference calls across time zones, emergency summonses, interns pulling execs out of gyms, airports, dinner reservations. vendors faxing over notices of breach. One even hand-delivered a cease and desist to the lobby, filming it for TikTok. Within the hour, 3 major service providers had terminated contracts. 2 filed suit. One CFO at a partner firm publicly commented on the Instagram post, "Unprofessional, unbelievable, uninsured." By 3 p.m., the company's name was trending. Not for innovation, not for success, for incompetence. Somewhere in the middle of this digital wildfire, a junior associate, Kayla, texted me. She'd always been sharp, a bit nervous, drank chamomile like it was whiskey. Her message buzzed onto my phone while I was watering my succulents. "Kayla, they want to talk to you, like now, please." I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I set the phone down. Let the silence soak in. They wanted to talk. Of course they did. They wanted the vault open. The hemorrhage stopped. The system stabilized. The contracts unfrozen. The investors coddled. They wanted the mess erased by the very hands they cast out. But I wasn't rushing back. I wasn't picking up the phone like a desperate ex trying to fix things for the good of the kids. No, this wasn't about fixing. This was about learning, because they needed to understand that some people aren't just titles on org charts. Some people are infrastructure. And when you tear them out by the roots for the sake of optics and clout, you don't just damage the system. You break it, and the internet does not forget. Screenshots of Brady's video were being memed into oblivion. "Out with the old" had become a punchline for chaos. Someone even photoshopped him onto the Titanic's deck, yelling it before the iceberg. One lead investor sent a text that got read aloud in the boardroom. "So the man-child nephew fired your signatory on Instagram. Who's running your compliance, Barney the dinosaur?" Brady, finally, was silent. Not from shame. That would have required a soul, but from fear. Because even he understood now that his little content stunt hadn't just backfired, it had imploded the company's financial lungs. And I went back to trimming my basil. Let them sweat. Let them call. Let them feel the chill of realizing that silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes silence is just waiting. The Zoom room looked like a hostage negotiation dressed in business casual. Cameras on. Voices tight. A grid of panic wearing $800 glasses. The founder was dead center, sweating under recessed lighting, trying to speak with what was clearly a rehearsed calm, the kind you use when you're already bleeding out but haven't looked down yet. "I want to be clear," he said, forcing a smile. "We are actively resolving the situation." Our former employee acted in accordance with outdated protocols that a chime interrupted him. "Bank REP1 has joined the meeting." Another chime. "Sarah Whitaker has joined the meeting." And just like that, the oxygen left the room. I appeared on their screen exactly as I intended. Cool, collected, in my home office with a clean wall behind me and a cup of coffee in hand. The same mug I used when I approved their last $7.2 million payment run. The founder froze mid-sentence. The bank rep, a woman named Elaine who never wasted syllables, cleared her throat. "We're here to confirm that, per regulatory standards, all disbursement authority is contingent on the presence of a valid authorized signatory. Our current records indicate that role is still held by Miss Whitaker." All eyes turned to me. I sipped. "Hi, everyone," I said, voice even. "Per clause 3.4b of our compliance framework, I cannot execute signatory transitions unless I am in active employment." That status was changed without due process via a live stream. The bank rep blinked. "We require employment status restoration before any transitions can be initiated." Their legal counsel, Mark, a man who once tried to explain GDPR to me like I was a child, went pale. His lips moved, but nothing came out. A lead investor leaned in. She had the kind of voice that could chill a courtroom. "Sarah, do you want a return?" I smiled politely. "No." The founder's face twitched. Brady, muted but visible, looked like he'd just been hit by a chair no one saw coming. But I added, setting down my mug, "I'll authorize one final transfer to stabilize payroll and vendor accounts." A beat passed. Someone exhaled. "Hope, foolish, premature hope, on 2 conditions." The founder cleared his throat. "Name them." 1. A public retraction. Full admission that my termination violated corporate policy and placed the company at risk. "I don't need an apology. I need the truth." He nodded slowly. "We can do that." 2. My severance package tripled, retroactive to the termination date with a clean break clause. "I walk, you never contact me again." Mark muttered something about budget constraints. Elaine from the bank cut in. "You've got 3 hours to resolve this. Otherwise, the account status escalates to institutional noncompliance and flags the federal regulator." The investor raised an eyebrow. "You will meet her conditions." Silence, and a shaky nod. "Very well," the founder said. I opened the transfer interface on my laptop. Input the token, authorized exactly 1 wire. No more, just enough to pay their staff and keep the wolves at bay for another 72 hours. Transfer confirmed. "Best of luck," I said, and I left the meeting. No dramatic exit, no speech, just a window closing. Behind me, the boardroom spun in the storm they created. My name wasn't erased from the records. It was carved into the reason they still had a company left to ruin. They wanted a comeback story. Instead, they got a reminder. I didn't return to fix what they broke. I returned to prove I was the only reason it worked in the first place. They thought the bleeding would stop after the transfer. That I'd pushed a button, spared them total collapse, and drifted back into silence like a footnote they could bury with a few PR spins and a charity gala. But stabilization isn't resurrection, it's a tourniquet, and by the time they'd tied it, the limb was already gone. The transfer I authorized, singular, not plural, was enough to cover salaries and critical vendor obligations through Monday. I didn't touch a penny more. I didn't offer a plan. I didn't stay on for transition. I had already transitioned, just not the way they expected. While they were drafting their groveling press statement and rehearsing how to spin Instagram firing into bold corporate rebranding, I was on a video call with the executive chair of a direct competitor. She didn't ask for small talk. She didn't blink when I named my terms. She just said, "We've seen your documentation. Your profile is immaculate. We've been trying to build a system like the one you already built alone." I nodded. "I'm not building alone again. You won't have to," and that was it. Offer letter signed. Title, Chief Risk Officer. Compensation, triple what I made before. Signing bonus, funded by a contract that used to belong to my old company until the vendor jumped ship the moment I changed my LinkedIn headline to available. They didn't even wait for my first day. 3 vendors emailed the same sentence. Wherever Sarah goes, we go. By 4 p.m., cracks that had been spreading under the surface ruptured. The quarterly funding round, the one Brady had been hyping with hashtags and cringe dance videos, collapsed. One investor formally withdrew, citing recent reputational volatility and compliance fragility. At 4:07 p.m., the bank downgraded the company's AML status. The downgrade was automatic, based on risk profile, instability, and, you guessed it, failure to maintain continuous compliance oversight. All of it public. That's the thing about systems, they don't keep secrets. By 4:30, another investor issued a statement to the board. "We will not proceed while this leadership remains in place." Brady deleted his Instagram account at 4:41 p.m. No farewell post. No tearful accountability carousel. Just gone, not because he felt shame, but because the comments wouldn't stop. Screenshots of his out with the old post were now viral memes. Someone photoshopped him onto the sinking ship from Titanic, captioned, "He fired the lifeboat." No one defended him. The founder didn't even try. By evening, vendors had begun migrating their contracts quietly, efficiently to my new employer. Word traveled fast, so did respect. Because in the world of high-risk finance and corporate compliance, reputation is currency. And mine was golden. Didn't get a villain, they got a mirror, and the reflection was unforgiving. Weeks later, I walked into my new office. Sleek, clean, mine. The receptionist handed me a gift-wrapped box with a sheepish grin, a little welcome present from the team. Inside, a framed screenshot of the infamous Instagram Live. Brady mid-smirk. Caption in bold, "Out with the old." Underneath, a plaque read, "Best onboarding we've ever had." I laughed loudly. The kind of laugh that cleans out old wounds. I hung it behind my desk, sat down, logged in. The screen asked for token approval. I entered the code. Transfer authorized. First wire of my new era. Not because I needed revenge, because I was the consequence. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.